Bethesda has some commitment issues. As I'm sure many of you have heard at this point, last week Bethesda announced that it would be shutting down Fallout 76's Battle Royale later this year in September. And as you could probably imagine, in response to this news, there was a massive amount of backlash. The entire subreddit was flooded with angry threads, petitions started to save the Battle Royale mode, and even just a wave of angry YouTube Oh, wait, what? That didn't actually happen? So no, in reality, when Bethesda announced this, it seemed like there was kind of one of three responses. The broader gaming community was surprised this even was still a thing. Most regular Fallout 76 players were pretty neutral or didn't care much. And then finally, the niche group of people that still do enjoy PvP in Fallout 76 actually did start some change.org petitions. That part was true. But even though I'm not necessarily that upset about Battle Royale mode being removed from Fallout 76 in its own right, I feel like this actually does reflect a larger issue with Bethesda's handling of this game, as Bethesda has just had really odd or confusing commitment issues with some of the features for Fallout 76, and this is across the board in a sense. Late last year before Cyberpunk, I was actually working on this 2 year later video for Fallout 76, and in that I wrote all about these commitment issues, so when they were deleting the Battle Royale mode, I was like, wait, this is finally my opportunity to share those thoughts. Although I do recognize that many of you will be quite saddened by this news. Your favorite game mode is getting deleted from Fallout 76 in a few months, and you may now be unsure of what to play in the future. But fortunately for you, I have a game that will be here in a few months and even for years to come, and that's today's video's sponsor, Summoner's War. It has been literally one of the most popular turn-based mobile RPGs for the past 7 years. They amassed over 110 million downloads on the Google Play Store and App Store, and this global community has turned into one of the most successful mobile esports games available right now. But even if you're not a pro gamer yourself, Summoner's War is a ton of fun. It features turn-based combat, which really, for me, is some of the most satisfying to do on mobile. You can pick it up and put it down at will, but also over 1,000 unique monsters to collect, each of these having their own unique style and abilities, all of this operating around your very own Sky Island, which is fully customizable, and there's quite literally always something else to do, with weekly in-game events and all kinds of different dungeons with different and unique designs. But the real reason right now is one of the best times to get to Summoner's War is the 7th anniversary global event. You can earn points in game to get over 100 different rewards. There's some high value summoning opportunities to get a ton of new creatures for yourself and even newly updated exclusive costumes. So don't wait and use my link in the video description to download Summoner's War totally for free and get in on the action. And also you'll help out this channel. Looking back at Fallout 76 and the Battle Royale mode even more specifically, I think it's actually an interesting choice for this game. Right at the bat, I think a Battle Royale for Fallout 76 was a horrible idea. Of all the PvP based game modes you have out there, like Capture the Flag, Team Deathmatch, or Battle Royale, it seems like adding the one with the highest consequences, where on death you literally have to start over, isn't necessarily the best decision for a franchise that has literally only ever been single player, only ever been a PvE game. But for one reason or another, Bethesda did eventually land on adding Battle Royale to Fallout 76. And by some miracle, this was actually super good. On release, the Battle Royale shocked me, and I think shocked a lot of other people, because it was, one, not buggy like at all. This released while Fallout 76 still was heralded as pretty much one of the buggiest game releases of the time, only being beat out by Anthem by some other miracle. But being bug-free aside, it was also just a ton of fun. It really did encapsulate the Fallout experience pretty well, giving you opportunities to actually build little bases, build up your camp, and then just explore the world you're familiar with. And I think the media overall, players overall, and even some YouTubers or content creators were actually quite surprised with how well executed this all was. And it seems like Bethesda even was quite happy with how this was performing, perhaps even passing expectations, because on release, the Battle Royale was only supposed to be up for a week or so, and then it would go back to a closed beta, but they actually extended the open beta and just kind of left the mode up indefinitely, which ended up being forever, or at least until September. So seemingly everyone was pleased with this, even Bethesda themselves. So you have this surprisingly successful Battle Royale mode for the game, but naturally, with it being Bethesda's first real kick at a proper PvP mode, it did have a couple of issues, a few balance things here or there, or tweaks that would have vastly improved it. And what does Bethesda do? None other than wait a month and a half before implementing any of the major and needed balance changes, and then from here on out, just not really update the mode. In the entire 2-year lifespan of Fallout 76's Battle Royale, it really only got like 3 major changes changes. There's some minor balance changes around release, which kind of were major because frog legs desperately needed to be nerfed. They added in a totally new map to experience at one point, and they added this perk coin system where you could actually get some of the perk cards you wanted. But as far as the actual gameplay itself, outside of those limited time events, that was really it. There's also the small map thing, but they ended up reverting that, so we're not going to talk about it. And to me, this is actually one of the core parts of Bethesda's issue here and the commitment issue at hand. As to me, the situation with the Battle Royale wasn't that it was inherently flawed or had a ton of problems or didn't fit in Fallout 76. I think it was actually surprisingly successful, but then Bethesda's lack of action, lack of updates that this mode desperately needed is what eventually ended up kind of killing it off. I think there was a pivotal moment at release where if they really attended to the mode, actually made some of those balance changes relatively quickly, they may have stuck around for a lot longer or just been way more popular. But getting murdered by these people levitating above you is just rather frustrating. As we find the mode now, a couple of years later, it's really no shocker it's getting removed, as it does have quite a few problems. If you load up with a public team just filling random team members, you almost always will get at least one AFK on your team. In general, there's a massive amount of AFKers on PC. You could actually just find them in bundles sometimes where they are randomly placed. This due to the fact that getting kills in this mode doesn't actually give you that much experience, and just surviving actually gives you a lot more experience more consistently. So taking the risk of engaging other players is oftentimes not actually worth it. Plus, sometimes the map is just too big. It kind of turns into a bit of a running simulator where you'll spend 5 minutes at a time just running. But also for the first couple of minutes, about half the time, the hotkeys or hot wheel just don't work, map markers no longer work, and if you emote in third person, sometimes you'll just be frozen in place doing that emote. This one is actually quite terrifying. It's not really shocked the mode itself is getting removed now because it's really not gotten an update in like over a year at this point. But what is pretty shocking to me is Bethesda's reluctance to kind of iterate or try and update and improve some of these game modes or features in general to be removed from Fallout 76. 2 game modes with both survival mode and now Battle Royale leaving this September. Vault raids was another big feature that didn't really work well and got removed. And with all of these things, particularly survival mode and Battle Royale in particular, it feels like that just some more attention to those modes would have made a lot of sense. Like with survival mode on release, you were able to bring in your own legendary items. A lot of people knew this wasn't a good idea, and lo and behold, the mode led to a lot of camping, one-shotting, and just overall was a little bit too imbalanced. And there was a couple of ideas passed around. Remove legendaries overall. Make it so you require a new character to play this mode, so everyone's kind of starting off on a more even playing field. And even in an interview, Todd Howard mentioned how they had some ideas for survival mode seasons.
But we also have ideas for, this could be a seasons thing, where you'd have a survival season where you have to create a new character. It lasts a month. It allows us to kind of mess with the rules while keeping the regular player base and those characters without, messing them up. So we have a ton of ideas there we hope to see through.
All of that sounded like some super promising experimentation with the mode, and like one of them could be a really cool permanent feature. In reality, we got a couple of changes to how loot was handled, and then Bethesda also sunsetted that mode and eventually deleted it. But to me, one of the reasons this is also surprising with Vault Raids, Battle Royale, and Survival mode is it seems like there is just a ton of work going into these modes from the onset. And sometimes when there are these long-term content droughts, I miss Survival mode. I do miss Vault Raids. I wish that was something they could have figured out. And you would think Bethesda in particular with Fallout 76 would be more willing to actually experiment or try and get some of these features working and not be so quick to actually remove them after just a couple of updates. That of course because they didn't give up on Fallout 76 in general. It's kind of a similar situation. Fallout 76 released with a lot of problems, but they stuck with it, and look now, the game is in a pretty good spot overall and definitely viewed a lot higher by the gaming community. And even though some of the biggest examples are of course these things that were removed from the game and Bethesda's reluctance to kind of tend to them as they needed to, I also think this applies to some other widely used features. Things like private servers. Private servers really got one major update ever. On release, when you made a private server, you couldn't actually make it truly private in that anyone on your friends list could join your private server. So in an update, they made it so it was exclusive to your team, so you could have a true private server, but it was up to a maximum of 4 players. But when this came out with the Fallout First subscription, there was a couple of things they floated around in the article, like how these could get further updates, adding in things like larger camp build budget, permanent workshops, etc. And although they weren't promises, it definitely did create this atmosphere where it seemed like, okay, I was subscribing to Fallout first, and these would be features, or specifically private servers, would get more things over time. They had a hopeful future, while in reality now, a year and a half later, they basically do the exact same thing, except this kind of haphazardly added true private server. And yet again, I feel like an example of this is when it came to the factions for the DLCs. The Free States, the Responders, and this new take on the Brotherhood of Steel and Enclave were pretty interesting. But with some of the DLCs, they kind of just reverted to the default. Settlers and Raiders, the Brotherhood of Steel. I know that technically for some of them, there's slight callbacks to what was before, in particular with the Raider questline, there's a bit of a callback to the old Raiders. It really just feels like these are more generic versions of these factions. Although it is definitely worth mentioning that I am saying all of this from the point of a consumer. There could be a whole different myriad of problems on the side of a developer, whether it be management or the actual number of developers themselves. There could be a ton of reasons why this stuff is happening. I'm commentating on the overall direction, but I wouldn't be surprised with at least several individual devs, they're also somewhat disappointed with the handling of some of these things. So overall with this video, it's not so much that I'm mad Bethesda is removing the Battle Royale mode from the game. I think it's just really confusing the handling of so much of this content. Like a lot of times it feels like Bethesda will add in some new feature and then perhaps even have a couple of ideas of different directions they could go with that feature, but then just never really do it. Like if the feature doesn't immediately meet expectations, it's not going to be getting much support, or even seemingly if it does meet expectations with private servers, they just chose to not continue in that route. We of course are getting the private server update in a couple of months, but that's going to be 2 years later. And with a lot of these other modes, I feel like there were avenues to success here with both survival mode, with the Battle Royale mode, maybe not vault raids, those were pretty buggy, but at least with these other two, I feel like the reason for their death really falls on Bethesda's maintenance of them and not necessarily what the mode was doing itself. It just needed a little bit of help, Bethesda. And to me, it's all confusing because all of this took a lot of development time. It took away from potential other features the game could get, and then to see them all just kind of die a sad death does disappoint me a little bit. I was hoping for a bit more with some of these things. I still miss survival mode. I still feel like there's a potential avenue where that is a really fun mode in Fallout 76. I wish there was some kind of capture the flag or team-based PvP mode you could do. I could imagine it with base building, base wars, or something along those lines having a ton of potential, but I assume the Battle Royale failure burnt that bridge for Bethesda. And I want to be quite clear with this video, I'm not trying to posit it as something like Bethesda is neglecting all of their fundamental features and the game is doomed forever. No, I'm actually pretty excited for the future of Fallout 76. I think this next July update is going to be a real meaty one, some new content that is much desperately needed, and the private server updates coming down the line, although 2 years after the initial incarnation of private servers, do also look really promising. And Expeditions in 2022 have me hyped also, just because they are not necessarily maintaining or updating some of these other features to the state that I think they definitely deserve to be updated to, doesn't mean I'm not still excited for the new features that are coming instead. I actually think there's a lot of great stuff on the horizon. Although, one thing that may be somewhat breaking this rule is daily ops, and it definitely is worth bringing these up too. Daily ops have been getting many updates. Many rewards are targeted behind daily ops as a grind. So it definitely is at least one of these add-on features that has been getting consistent and constant attention, but even with that one that has remained and gotten attention, it still feels like there's a lot of things getting neglected. Either way, those are my thoughts on all of this. I'd really love to hear from you guys down below. What is your take on the Battle Royale removal? How do you feel about this kind of commitment issue it feels like Bethesda has? With that said, as always, again, I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.